Hi there, welcome to Switch Mania. I am Clarence and today we'll talk about the best Nintendo Switch games on sale. We will be covering the UK, EU, US, Australia, and Canada eShop. But first and foremost, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you want to see more of this series, please leave a like. Remember to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell to receive future notifications. Likes and subscriptions help keep the channel alive. First on our list is Death's Door. Death's Door is a modern classic that takes old game ideas and applies them to a new setting to create a short and sweet experience you won't want to miss. Even though Death's Door doesn't have anything new to offer, you won't be able to get enough of it. The fast combat, rewarding exploration, and soothing music will stick with you long after you've completed the game. We'd highly recommend this one, especially to fans of Zelda or Souls. Acid Nerve has created a game that is both entertaining and worthwhile. Death's Door is a unique and entertaining action-adventure game with excellent music and graphics. You can pick it up and play it anywhere, and while it requires skill to play, it is simple to learn. Next is Disco Elysium, The Final Cut. The game Disco Elysium, The Final Cut is a smash hit. Even though the story and dialogue were already compelling on their own, the excellent voice acting added for the Final Cut boosted them significantly. There are numerous ways to play, and the story is told in a slow, methodical manner that may turn off some players. This is, however, one of the best stories told in any medium in recent years. Even with the performance issues, Disco Elysium, The Final Cut remains one of the best RPGs on Switch. Disco Elysium isn't for everyone. It's a specialized experience that was previously only available on PC but is now available on Nintendo. In comparison to others, this port is very playable, and it may be the second best way to play this strange RPG game outside of the PC. Next is Tetris Effect Connected. Tetris Effect Connected was initially only available on the eShop. I bought it at midnight the night it was released and played it until about 6 AM. I couldn't stop playing until I'd seen and heard everything there was to see and hear. That may give the impression that the game is short, but if most players take their time with the campaign, I can see it taking 6 or 7 hours to complete. Tetris Effect connects various game modes and multiplayer will keep players coming back for a long time. I can't emphasize how important it is for anyone who owns a Switch. Next up, ClusterPuck 99. ClusterPuck 99 is yet another indie Switch game that you should own. The Nintendo eShop is rapidly filling up with low-cost, high-quality games, and this one is no exception. ClusterPuck 99 is an excellent game for fans of fast-paced action because it features simple controls, amusing graphics, a large number of levels, and a course creator. ClusterPuck 99 is a good deal if you play with a large group of people. It's simple enough that anyone could do it. There are various maps to choose from. The game appears to have taken a lot of time and thought to create. As a result, I wouldn't recommend playing this game by yourself. Next is Super One More Jump. Super One More Jump is a fun and addictive game that starts out easy and gradually becomes more difficult. There are over 100 levels to complete as well as a few extra game modes to unlock. There are also 2 multiplayer modes, one of which allows 2 to 4 players to collaborate. A fantastic eShop game that appears simple but is actually quite difficult. The game's small soundtrack is a problem, but it's really the only major issue we have with it. The platforming mechanics in Super One More Jump are perfect, and when combined with the massive variety of obstacles you must overcome, you get a game that is incredibly fun, rewarding, and tough as nails. Despite the lackluster music, this 2D platformer is well worth your time. Next up, Death Squared. Death Squared is a fun little puzzle game that is still entertaining and interesting after 80 levels. It only takes a few levels to get the hang of it, but only the most skilled players will be able to handle some of the more difficult stages on their own. Multiplayer can be fun with 2 Joy-Cons, but I wasn't thrilled that I almost needed a partner to finish the game. Death Squared is a lot of fun for the price, and it should satisfy any Switch puzzle cravings. Even though Death Squared was first released on Steam, it appears that this game and the Nintendo Switch were made for each other. Death Squared is a must-have for the Nintendo Switch because it features puzzles that are smarter than they appear, a funny, smarmy sense of humor, and natural, instant multiplayer. Next is the TakeOver. The obvious question when playing the TakeOver is how it compares to Streets of Rage 4. I am happy to say that it's worth your time and money, even if it lacks online play and polish compared to .emu, Lizard Cube, and Guard Crush games. Some players may be put off by the CG-style sprites, but everything else about this package feels right, especially the 2 bonus stages, which feel like love letters to other Sega classics. The TakeOver is a fun and addictive side-scrolling fighting game that should be purchased by any fan of side-scrolling fighting games. Next up, Candleman. Candleman is a fun mobile game to play because the levels are short and can be completed whenever you want. It's also simple to replay because the goal of each level is to light candles, but it's not very long. It's a shame, because I believe there could have been so much more to learn. Candleman, on the other hand, is the best game I can think of to play if you want a short, thought-provoking game that won't take up all of your time and won't cost you a fortune. Candleman is still a relatively short game, but it is just the right length and does not drag on for too long. The story in this game is very heartwarming, and the writing style is similar to that of a storybook. It would be a fantastic activity for a family to do together. Next is AngerForce, Reloaded. Even if it lacks the arcade roots that have made other Switch shoot-'em-ups so popular, it's clear that the team behind AngerForce Reloaded understands what makes this type of game so enjoyable. It has tight controls, great graphics, and a difficult challenge, but the addition of a deep campaign mode with a slew of unlockable upgrades and abilities extends the life of AngerForce Reloaded significantly. Despite the lack of a big-name IP, fans of the genre should get this as soon as possible. The story mode is an excellent place to begin for those who have never played a game like this before. Next is Heaven Dust 2. Heaven Dust 2 is a must-have for fans of survival horror games. It's a clear homage to Resident Evil, and despite being played from an isometric perspective, it gives you the same feeling as the original games. Even though the story is based on an old idea, it manages to surprise you, and the setting allows you to lose yourself in the game for the few hours you'll spend with it. Heaven Dust 2 is the most enjoyable survival horror game I've played in a long time. It's perfect in the sense that it feels like it's from the past. It also has a rewarding campaign structure and simple battles that require some strategy. Next is Cattails. Cattails is a small indie game that is surprisingly polished and well made for its size. The controls are straightforward, the game runs smoothly, and the graphics are bright, colorful, and adorable. Again, it lacks the detail of some other open-world games, and fighting is a little too easy. It's entertaining to converse with other cats, but there could be more ways to respond. Overall, the gameplay is enjoyable and could easily consume 20 or more hours of your time if you let it, but you still have 8 more. If you like Stardew Valley, Harvest Moon, or just cats, this game is nearly perfect. Next is the Warlock of Firetop Mountain, Goblin Scourge Edition. The Warlock of Firetop Mountain is an excellent retelling of a classic adventure story. It's a lot of fun to play, looks great, and works well with the Switch's ability to pause and resume games. It doesn't run as smoothly as it could and could benefit from a little more polish, but that's easy to overlook when the experience is so good. Tin Man Games has done an excellent job of telling a classic story in a way that is worthy of the fighting fantasy name. The Warlock of Firetop Mountain, Goblin Scourge Edition is a fantastic story-driven adventure game with only a few minor bugs that make it difficult to play. Next up, What Comes After? The visuals and sounds, combined with the meaningful and positive story, form the entire package for a brief journey into what comes after. What you think of What Comes After will, in general, depend on who you are. It is a very short game, lasting only about an hour, so even if the gameplay is a little boring, the game does not drag on for too long. You might enjoy this if you're more interested in the story than the gameplay, but if you're more interested in the gameplay, you should look elsewhere. What Comes After has a lot to say, and even if the translation isn't perfect, it's worth a look if the premise interests you. Next is Eternum Ex, a tribute to classic arcade games from the 1980s, but with a unique twist. The games on Switch or PC are challenging, and the level design is delicious. It's difficult not to replay a level until you've mastered it. A title for old-school fans and young people looking to have a good time. Eternum Ex is an arcade game that returns us to the type of games I enjoy. It has excellent pixel art and a reasonable level of difficulty, but it cannot be played with others. It's simple to play again. Eternum Ex is like going back in time. It's a fun game, but it can get tedious after a while. Still, it's a good chance to relive the thrills of an old-school arcade. Next up, Ritual, Crown of Horns. Ritual Crown of Horns is a difficult but rewarding action game with a Western horror theme that will appeal to fans of the horde genre. The difficulty level may be a little too high for casual play, and some people may never get used to how it works, but everyone else will have a great time shooting things in this one. Ritual Crown of Thorns is intriguing and definitely unique, but the game is so difficult that it exhausts the player. Next is Mythic Ocean. Mythic Ocean can be played multiple times because your choices affect how the story ends. This story-based game is ideal for those who enjoy immersive visual novels or who enjoy having their choices influence the game. Mythic Ocean is a high-stakes game that doesn't rely on combat or skill trees to engage players in the world. Despite the fact that the controls aren't perfect, the game is a fun and magical adventure. Mythic Ocean condenses the story elements of these games into a series of thoughtful conversations with a likable cast, while revealing something much deeper, the philosophies and quirks that shape our human condition, by removing most of the unnecessary parts of a bloated RPG, such as combat, leveling up, and customizing your character. Next up, Agent A, a puzzle in disguise. Agent A is a clever puzzle-based adventure game that almost anyone who enjoys this genre will enjoy. Overall, Agent A, a puzzle in disguise is a clever and simple puzzle adventure game. It's shorter and easier to understand than games like Myst or The Witness, and you can finish it in a few evenings. Because the Switch version lacks the same challenges and achievements as the mobile versions, there's little reason to replay Agent A once you've completed it. In any case, assisting Agent A with her mission is a fun diversion that doesn't last too long. Agent, best of luck. Next is Super Street Racer. Super Street Racer for the Nintendo Switch is a game for people who like to take a junkyard car and fix it up so it can be used on the road. The goal is to win enough events to earn enough money to purchase new vehicle parts. This may appear difficult, but it is actually a simple and quick task. Super Street Racer is a fun driving simulation game that allows you to customize your car to make it unique to you. The races move quickly and smoothly, and this racing game could be even better if it had a few more features and tracks. Next up, Horizon Shift 81. Horizon Shift 81 is designed to look like classic shoot-'em-ups, but it never gets lost in its own pastiche. The game's design makes it clear almost immediately that it is a copy of an existing style. Even though it is a simple idea, hardcore fans of the genre will recognize how clever it is to be able to shoot at enemies from both sides of the screen. Because enemies can attack from both above and below, the game's main loop is even more frantic than usual for the genre. This is one of the most adorable shoot-'em-ups I've seen so far. Next is Edna and Harvey, the Breakout Anniversary Edition. Edna and Harvey the Breakout re-releases a PC classic with a new coat of paint for a new audience. It takes the basic concept of escaping an asylum and runs with it, providing a plethora of ways to interact with the game as well as excellent writing and voice acting. The Switch's touchscreen feels ignored here, and later in the game, there are some logical issues that make sense for the genre. But aside from that, this is a good way to break free. Even though getting used to the controls takes longer than it should, it's mostly worth it. Edna and Harvey the Breakout Anniversary Edition shines because there are more positives than negatives, especially the extensive dialogue, which is well written and amusing. I'm glad I stuck with this game. As a fan of the genre, I thought it was entertaining. Next up, AER Memories of Old. Considering the game's style, the story contains a surprising amount of emotion. The music and sound effects work in tandem to create a specific mood. There isn't much wrong with this, except that the saves may not be clear enough at first, requiring you to replay the first part. A sequel would be inappropriate for the story, but it would be fantastic if other stories were told in the same inventive manner as AER Memories of Old. Despite the fact that there doesn't appear to be anything new after the game, the moving story is reason enough to play it again and become lost in its skies. Next up, Jars. Jars is similar to Creepy Tale 2, but the puzzles are much better put together and more enjoyable. Players can complete even the most difficult levels of the game in a matter of minutes by experimenting and seeing what works. Jars will pique the interest of players due to its appealing graphics, a plethora of different characters in hero mode, and a few difficult levels scattered throughout the main story. You'll have a good time at its price point, especially if you like the way it looks and want a light tower defense game. It's cute, and it doesn't impede your progress through the levels. It depends on how much you like the animals, the hand-drawn pictures, and Victor's story, whether you remember it or not. Next is State of Mind. State of Mind is an intriguing story about two men who become entangled in a plot that causes them to reflect on life itself. Fans of adventure games will enjoy the game's unique graphics and setting, as well as its intriguing future story. State of Mind has an unusual appearance, but its story and the ability for players to control multiple characters are its best features. However, despite a good plot, the game is slow-paced and takes its time to mature. This will likely turn off impatient players, and those familiar with science fiction will be able to predict what will happen. State of Mind is slow because it takes its time to reveal its world and story. The game may not have many ways to play, but the ideas it inspires are so good that you can't help but enjoy it. Next is Unrailed. Unrailed is a funny game with a high difficulty level. The difficulty curve is steep, which will take some getting used to. This is one of the game's flaws, especially since multiplayer is its main selling point. Those who are willing to figure out how it works, on the other hand, will be rewarded with a work that is both funny and memorable. Unrailed has the feel of games like Minecraft and Terraria, but it offers its own unique experience. You might end up working on the railroad all day if you try to play a quick game with a few friends. And last, but not the least, Felix the Reaper. Felix the Reaper is a fun puzzle game that nails some of the most important aspects, including difficulty, level design, and style. While the environments aren't as varied and the controls aren't as well executed as they could be, the game works well and should be on the radar of anyone who enjoys solving puzzles as a dancing Grim Reaper. Felix the Reaper is unique and entertaining, which is something I can't say about many puzzle games. It has a hard time staying fresh after a few hours, but it's always enjoyable. Even if puzzle games aren't your thing, the writing quality and the caliber of Felix's dancing are too good to pass up. If you enjoy puzzle games, look no further than Felix the Reaper. That's all guys. I hope this video was helpful in deciding which game to play, and thank you for checking out the list. Please remember to subscribe and we'll see you at the next one.